I had a job assignment in Chiang Mai, and my client booked a hotel for 3 nights. The plan was to drive all the way from Bangkok, because using my own car made everything easier. Even after meeting the client, we could still travel wherever we wanted without relying on anyone else. It was a long trip, but I felt it would be worth it. I went with my team, 4 of us in total. So we shared a room with an extra bed. The room was quite spacious, and the extra bed was set up in a spot that looked private enough. One of my coworkers even volunteered to sleep there. Since we left Bangkok late in the morning, we didn't arrive at the hotel until almost midnight. Everyone was exhausted. We showered and went straight to bed without talking much. My 3 coworkers fell asleep almost instantly. I could tell. One was snoring loudly. Another was lying there with her mouth open and drooling, but I couldn't sleep at all. The snoring was driving me crazy. I was exhausted, sleepy, irritated, and honestly felt like stuffing ashes in her mouth just to make it stop. I just wanted some quiet so I could finally rest. So I gently pushed her shoulder, rolling her onto her side. It worked, the snoring stopped. I let out a sigh of relief and started drifting off. But just as I was slipping into sleep, my body froze completely. I couldn't move a single part of myself. Here we go, I thought. Something's wrong. Something is definitely here. I forced my eyes to glance slowly around the room, trying to see what was happening. The room was dimly lit, and I scanned the shadows to see if anything felt out of place. That was when I noticed something was terribly wrong. The extra bed, where my coworker had been sleeping moments earlier, was no longer a bed. It had transformed into a corpse wrapped tightly in a funeral shroud. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All I knew was that the thing lying there was not my friend, and whatever it was showing itself to me. My whole body was frozen stiff. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Panic swelled in my chest as I fought to move, but nothing responded. Then I saw it on the ceiling above the extra bed. A dark stain, small at first, slowly spreading wider and wider. From that expanding patch, twisted roots mixed with black, muddy sludge began to crawl downward. They slithered over the shrouded corpse, winding around it, gripping it tighter and tighter. And then they started creeping toward my bed. Terror surged through me. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to recite every prayer I could think of. But in that moment of fear, every chant, every sacred verse, slipped from my mind. Nothing came out right. Everything was a blur, and suddenly everything vanished. The corpse, the roots, the stain on the ceiling, all gone. I could move again, but I didn't dare wake my coworkers. They would think I was imagining things or losing my mind. So I quietly slipped into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to steady my breathing. When I returned, bad dreams away. Surprisingly, it worked. No more paralysis. No more nightmares. The next day, we hurried off to meet the client as usual. But I felt drained, foggy, slow, like someone who hadn't truly slept at all. My mind kept drifting, and even talking to the client felt like my brain was lagging behind. My coworkers eventually noticed how out of it I was. When we finished with the client, they took me out for coffee, and it actually helped. The fog lifted, the drowsiness faded, and my brain finally started working again. After dinner with the client, we said our goodbyes and headed back to the hotel for our second night. I had eaten way too much. Both the food the client treated us to and all the coffee I drank just to be polite. With all that in my system. Sure enough, everyone else fell asleep right away. They were exhausted from the long day. But not me. Caffeine had taken full control, and my eyes were as wide as ever. Once again, I became the designated night guard, awake, restless, and alone in the silence. Just when I was finally drifting off, my whole body locked up again. I couldn't move. Not a finger, not a muscle. Only my eyes shifted, scanning the dark room as dread crawled up my spine. I braced myself, wondering what the spirit would show me tonight. The extra bed still held my coworker, sleeping with her mouth open, drooling like nothing was wrong, but something else was sitting beside her. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, Long hair, pale skin, seated motionless in a wheelchair right next to the bed. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She just sat there, completely still. I didn't need anyone to tell me. I knew exactly what I was seeing. Another apparition. Another night of being haunted. I struggled desperately, trying to break free, trying to remember any prayer at all. But like before, every chant slipped from my mind. Nothing came out right. And then, just like the night before, the vision vanished. My body loosened, and I could move again. I bolted up from the bed, pressed my palms together, and recited the 9 verses of Thou Wasuan as loudly and quickly as I could. My voice shook with fear and frustration, but I kept going until all 9 were finished. The chanting was so loud that all my coworkers woke up at once. They didn't even need to ask what happened. Whenever I prayed like that, they knew I had seen something. Once I calmed down, they gathered around and listened as I explained everything. Their final moments, their final suffering. Still trapped in this place, unable to move on. Maybe, they said, the spirit showed itself because it wanted me to understand how it suffered, so I could dedicate merit for them, help lighten their burdens, ease the weight of their karma. And when enough merit was offered, the spirit might finally be able to leave this realm and move on to wherever their next path awaited. Hearing my coworkers explain it that way made something inside me sink. If the spirit had shown itself because it needed help, then what about the chant I recited? I couldn't help wondering whether the invocation of Thou Wasuan might have frightened them, pushed them away, or caused them even more distress. The thought stayed with me for a moment, and in the end, I realized there was only one thing I could do. The best offering I had, the only thing that might ease whatever suffering lingered here, was to extend kindness. So I closed my eyes, steadied my breath, and recited a quiet prayer of compassion. If they were lost, may they find direction. If they were suffering, may that suffering lighten. If they were waiting, may they receive the merit they needed to finally move on. It felt like the only right thing to do.
Drawn by BikiBaam. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, so you won't miss any of our new creative clips. Support our art journey with a super thanks. See you again in the next clip. Coming soon.